The following is a production of the University of Minnesota, driven to discover.
Hi, this is David Arundel, your host for the Peer Assisted Learning Groups podcast. Thanks for spending some time with us today. This episode introduces us to Natasha, who's a study group leader for the SI program at Vancouver Island University in Canada. This is part 3 of a 4-part series of the VIU program. Natasha shared her experience as a study group leader in a general psychology course. Our topics of our conversation included how she became a study group leader, reasons that the psychology course was challenging for many first-year students, some of the most effective study group session activities that she used in her groups, development of confidence by students as a result of the study group experience, and what were some of Natasha's personal and professional development activities and outcomes as a result of serving as a study group leader. Well, let's listen in on our conversation. Well, hi, everyone. Glad that you're here for another episode of the podcast. And we have Natasha with us for this episode. So welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everybody. My name is Natasha. My favorite hobbies, I would say, are hiking, running, and cooking. And I also enjoy being outdoors with my dogs. So I am a psychology major with a minor in criminology, and I am currently wrapping up my 3rd year of study.
Where do you think that may lead you for a vocational path?
I am actually aspiring towards a career in investigative psychology.
Interesting. Well, it sounds like we could do a new TV show, I think, because I'm not sure I've heard of someone with your particular background doing that kind of work. But then again, maybe I'm being limited. Well, with a busy schedule as a student, other than the salary that you receive as a study group leader, why did you choose to do that job?
Well, actually, how I started my job as a leader was quite an interesting story. So I spent my first 2 years of my degree working full-time as a restaurant server. Of course, the income in that job was great, but I decided to take a leap of faith right before my 3rd year of study, and I resigned from being a server. It was time for me to completely focus my energy on my education, and I'm so glad I did. So a good friend of mine actually informed me of the position as a study group leader. This was a pretty spontaneous decision of mine, and it just happened to occur by chance. So I actually ended up getting paired with my favorite psychology professor at my university, and things just worked out.
Well, I'm glad that did work out for you. Why is that particular course so challenging for many students?
So I support an introductory psychology class. This means that the course covers a very wide range of topics, including language, thought, intelligence, and development over the lifespan. All other topics include personality theories, social psychology, psychological disorders, as well as therapies. Whereas upper-level psychology classes will focus on one topic at a time, introductory classes cover so many things. As a result, prioritizing material can be a little difficult for some students. My job then is to help students identify what material they need to prioritize in order to study for the exam and prepare themselves for upper-level psychology classes.
Well, as I remember, the general psychology textbook tended to be the biggest one in the bookstore. Is that still true?
Yeah, it's about 1,000 pages.
That's an enormous task for, I would think, first year students to read. If you're thinking about what's 15 into 1,000, that's 80 pages a week or so, maybe.
So actually, there are 2 introductory psychology classes, and the same textbook is used for both of those classes, but there is a lot of overlap.
Well, obviously, it's challenging with the number of topics that you talked about, the sheer volume of material that they need, and recognizing they're enrolled in a whole bunch of other classes One of the rule of thumbs that I was told whenever I was teaching history at my last school before I retired was first year students ought to be reading at least 50 pages in each one of their classes. And if they took 5 classes, that meant that the average load was 250 pages a week for first year students. That was pretty challenging for a lot of the students, even the ones that had top marks coming out of secondary school.
Sounds about right. I remember doing a lot of reading in my first year.
Thinking about your sessions that you facilitate, what are one or two of your favorite study activities that seem to help students to be able to understand the material?
So I am actually a huge proponent of the test retest method. So I like to have the students make their own study questions and test themselves in little groups. Another thing that I like to do is I like to prepare a practice exam and then host a little practice session for students to do the exam and then ask questions to each other as well as to me. Another activity that I've been using recently because this semester I've suddenly had like way more students attend my sessions. So I've been making plans for large groups of students as opposed to smaller groups that I was used to. So something that I have been doing recently, which I've had a lot of success with, is I'll pair students or I'll group students into groups of around like 2 to 4, and then I'll have them like make a little presentation on a topic in the chapter that we're covering, and then they'll all get together and like present as well as give like little criticisms or feedback on each other's work. And I find that's a pretty effective way to cover a big breadth of material when there is a bigger number of students to facilitate.
No, that's a really wise strategy. Also, it seems like you're helping them to develop some other skills. Like, do you see at the beginning of the term, if you do that activity, that there's some nervousness by some students about presenting, even presenting within their group of 3 or 4, and then presenting in front of the big group?
Yeah, I would say there was probably some nerves in the beginning, but I've had honestly the same like 10 or so students come to my sessions. And I would say now that they seem very comfortable, and there's usually a lot of like conversation going between them as well as like between me and them. So, yeah, I think that, or at least I hope that these presentations have helped them build a few skills.
Well, no, I think that behaviorally, you observed what they were saying, how they were interacting with each other. A theme that a lot of people have been sharing through these podcast conversations has been the element of developing confidence. Is that something that you think is really important for college students to have?
I honestly think it depends on what their goals are. Like, for example, if somebody wants to attend graduate school, that's of course a very, very competitive thing. So I think that confidence with making networks and things like that that really support that grad school application is important. But unfortunately, I've noticed that not everybody in college is there because they necessarily want to pursue a dream job or a dream program. So for those people, maybe they're just in it taking things day by day and they simply just want to pass their classes. So I think it really depends on the student and what their goals are.
Well, so far
Yeah.
we've been talking about your students and what they experience. Well, let's turn the tables here and look at you. What are you getting out of this personally, serving as a study group leader?
So actually, as a study group leader, I would say that I have like significantly expanded my campus networking. And honestly, like I have become quite friendly with some of the students that I've supported in the past, as well as those that I support right now. Because with my position, it's not like that power imbalance between like professor and student. It's more like we are both students. We are friendly. We are on the same level. We are learning together. So I have been able to make professional as well as personal networks from my position. On the note of confidence, I've gained some, I would say, improved confidence with just facilitation in general and planning, as well as oral communication, and just like my confidence with navigating like online programs and Zoom and things like that, as well as my confidence with speaking to my professors, because there is a lot of communication between the leader and the professor when it comes to designing sessions that are most effective to the biggest number of students.
Have you thought about how you're going to describe this in a small paragraph to go into your resume or your CV?
I have it on my CV right now. Actually, the professor that I support has checked out my CV a few times, because at the beginning of every semester, she's really great for helping students get a really good CV going. And she used mine as an example in the beginning of class this semester. And she said that I should actually put my position under teacher's assistant, because there is a lot of assisting within the class. But the thing is, the position can be put under all sorts of different like little categories, because there's just so much that you get to do both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So I think that being a study group leader for psychology, you're kind of like at an advantage to help students learn a lot more about themselves as well as how to study. Because like, for example, in cognitive psychology, you get to learn about how the brain best encodes information and how that information can be retrieved on exams. So I just like to get students really excited about the material, even if they don't plan to go on in psychology as their major, because I find that psychology is so foundational and so important for self-awareness, which I think can build some great skills as a student.
Well, excellent. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm sure the people who are listening to the podcast have enjoyed your words as well. So best wishes, Natasha.
Thank you.